What diversity means to me is the ability for people to come from wherever they are, whatever background they have, to come together and communicate. Because communication as human beings is one of the most important aspects that we have, compared to a lot of other things that we've seen from animals and other scientific adventures we've gone on. We've seen that uniqueness that humans have in its ability to communicate with a language that can be extremely complex, yet we know when we're speaking to one another we can use body language or rather regular speech language or translation for us to communicate around the world. I mean, no other animal does that. No other being that we know of does that, so we share something unique with that. So that diversity is where those people can all come together to share one common idea.
To me, diversity is that openness and that acceptedness of anybody who wants to come. And it's not so much of I have X percent so-and-so, X percent of so-and-so. It's just a being proud of the fact that we're not all the same. And it's being proud of the fact that, we're letting people be who they want to be.
To me, simply means difference. It means that, well, that's pretty much it. It just means that differences between people and whatever their experiences are. There's not a good or a bad or anything like that to it. It's just a thing. It's what we put into it that makes it mean something.
Diversity means to me seeing the full picture. Looking at things from all different angles, knowing that there's just not one way of doing things, that everyone has a different way, and that everyone's way is right.
I guess, diversity means to me. It's a hard question. Well, it exists. I know that. And for me, I think without a proper understanding of what it is and how to, have it and be part of your life is so, I think, integral to the human experience that if you're not doing that, it's almost, I can say, if you're not experiencing diversity and experiencing these things, then, I don't know, it's a travesty and you end up actually being, I don't know, negative things in your life. I don't know. No. It's always been a lot to me because I am, obviously, I am a person of color. I do identify as being gay. So I have all these things kind of going against me, but it's like, well, whatever. Yeah.
I guess diversity for me would mostly be if I ask a question of a group and I get an answer that surprises me. That's to me how you keep pushing your envelope and making yourself more personally diverse, is continually being open to different answers and being surprised and pleasantly surprised to find that people have different perspectives than you do.
I think when you're talking about diversity, it's hard to separate any form of oppression, and considering how they intertwine is most important. So racial diversity and socioeconomic diversity go together, and you have to consider both of them.
I think socioeconomic status, and I think a lot of the things that we look at as, this is black culture, or this is redneck culture, when in reality that's poor culture. And the things that people are talking about is living in poverty and being poor more than they are race. So I really think those things go hand in hand. You have diverse people of many races, who go from one spectrum to the other, But poverty plays a lot in culture and how people behave in the world.
Personally, I think class, like socioeconomic class, actually is a byproduct of racial discrimination. Because, if we just look at our nation's history, with the whole racial discrimination, it becomes this terrible class, and the associations. It was such a big population, the associations were put with it, and I think it's this byproduct. Not that everything is that neat and tidy, but yeah. I do see class as more of a racial issue, actually. So they're race, I guess. Yeah.
I had to change the way I do things, not really to say this is what I do, but just as first to have the first impression, and also at the same time to get them comfortable and so we can have a conversation, but also on the other hand to be able to see how things are if I played them the other way. So I am used to do things this way, but what if I did it this way? And that has been a very rich experience for me that I learned. I actually changed a lot since I came in here.
I definitely think I think you change the way you, I don't know how you say it, that you act, but I think you don't change your personality or your values of who you are. I think you kind of change the way you communicate with different cultures and different people. I think there's an efficient way of communicating with everybody, and you kind of have to read who you are with and find out which way is best to communicate who you are with them. And I think that changes with which group of people you are with, the way that you act, but I don't think you ever change who you are inside, like your values, personality, what you believe in. So I definitely think you change the way you act to get whatever you are trying to do, the point you're getting across, or whatever it is that you're involved in. There's an efficient way to doing that with whatever group you're in, whether it's, it could be in business school or your friends or whoever it is. You have to kind of change the way you act in front of them. So.
Behavior when you're exposed to other cultures, for me, is to understand where that culture or that person's coming from. I think that oftentimes some people try to imitate the accent or imitate maybe some of the behaviors, and to a certain extent it could also be a little bit disrespectful, because it could be taken as if you're making fun of the accent or the way I act and stuff like that. And so I think that during you have to find a common balance of when am I crossing the line and actually trying to communicate with this person effectively, or am I just making fun of this person because of their accent or where they're coming from. I try to, whenever I work with subconsciously sometimes you behave towards that person, but I always try to ask him is it okay if I act this way, or what's appropriate to you, because I think that you have to be respectful and of everyone else, because I know that if something is bothering me, I wish maybe people would ask me, or if they don't, then I kind of go up and be like, hey, you know what, that's a little disrespectful toward me. So
the biggest benefit I see with diversity is that it's not only focused on what people look like, because diversity isn't necessarily, right on the outside. Diversity is, the differences that all of us as human beings have, individuals. We're all different, and that we all share something very special, that each one of us have at least something very special.
Well, I'm not sure if there's a single one. I think one of the greatest benefits of diversity is that it allows us to get out of ourselves, and it allows us to be able to recognize and acknowledge and embrace change more quickly.
I think one of the greatest strengths of diversity is to have the chance to meet other people from different races and ethnic and social classes. And so, for example, 2 years ago, one of my friends, he is from the Middle East, and his faith is Islam. And so he asked me to do Ramadan for a day with him and fast for a day. And so I did that. And so I didn't eat from sunrise till sunset. And so I learned a lot about Islam and what it was about. We had several conversations about what it meant, and I learned a lot through that process. So I think one of the strong points about diversity is that it's the opportunity to grow and to show and to see different cultures and different experiences.
It did affect my high school experience. A lot of times it would be very uncomfortable being in different classes. The questions that people would ask, and especially when we had to go through American history and talk about civil rights and the civil rights movement, everyone wanted my opinion because I was African American and obviously I had more experience than them, but it was just a really uncomfortable and kind of weird situation. But luckily all the administrators and the teachers were very liberal, so I never had anyone, mess with me at all or make me feel on purpose uncomfortable or have any sort of racism acted towards me, because all the teachers and everyone was on my side.
I don't feel like I got anything less out of my high school experience by not having a more diverse group around me.
I think it affected my high school experience a lot, actually, because at Lincoln I didn't fit in with people because I was a black student, and I didn't fit in with the other black students because they were all very concentrated, and they kind of looked at me like I was not black enough to be with them. And then, of course, the white students, I wasn't with them because I was not a white student. Then when I went to Jeff, I was really ostracized there by black students because the way I spoke, and it was just a lot of really, taunting, and that I was trying to be white. It was amazing, and so I do think a lot of that stuff did affect.
Yeah. It was hard because it wasn't there, I guess, so there wasn't any sort of understanding. I couldn't really go to anybody to say, hey, and it's weird too because I'm Native American, and the population just didn't exist at the school, so I couldn't go to someone else and say, hey, I'm having this feeling, I'm having these problems, people are acting this way towards me, because it was either the Latino people or I guess the other black kid, and it didn't make sense to talk with them. So I'd talk to other white people about my issues who just didn't understand.
I guess it just made me aware that not everybody was coming from my background, whether it be cultural or, geographical, it could really in any respect. I grew up with a lot of people from different countries, different, cultures, so it was really interesting to go over to their houses for dinner and eat the meals of their countries or their culture, and really experience life outside of my own little bubble.
I mean, diversity can come in many ways. I mean, again, I came from a high school that was not as diverse as a lot of other places. But if the foundation is there to be taught that, you can't, I've seen that you can learn it, you can experience it without necessarily experiencing it, because once you do, you'll be ready for it. And I think the earlier we start, in elementary, middle, and high school, to lay the foundation everywhere, whether it's diverse or not, shows the importance of it.
Well, again, I think that comes down to the idea of forcing. I grew up in a community that wasn't the way it was because of how it was settled and the people that moved there. So, adding more diversity or taking out diversity doesn't really kind of make sense in just a black and white add or subtract kind of mind for me. I was happy with the way my high school experience turned out.
High school over again? Oh Lord, we're going way back to 1980 something. So that would be a nightmare. Let me think. I had to start high school all over again. Yeah, I would like to. I wish that I was in a school that was more mixed up, more diverse and more cultures. Because back when I was in high school, you didn't see a lot of Asian kids. Yeah. You didn't see a lot of Hispanic kids. It was either black or white usually.
About the same. I never, like I said, I pretty much had people from everywhere, and it's been a part of that community for so long that it was normal. It wasn't as if the school was just opened up to a different diverse demographic, whether it be, for whatever reason. The school had been that way for a number of years, so it was already built up as a sense of normalcy by the time I went through the high school.
I personally love the diversity here at Portland State because I also have the Diversity Enrichment Scholarship, so I was forced and funneled into a class with people of all different backgrounds who they chose from around the board, and there was difference in class, there was difference in obviously race, and I think for me personally, since I had that experience, it's extremely good, and I guess I'm really satisfied.
Yeah, it's at Portland State, and if so, why? Or why not?
Because Portland State is considered to be the most diverse university in the state, but people don't put that into context. Oregon's not a diverse state to begin with, and so for PSU to be a diverse university in Oregon simply means that it's not quite as right. It doesn't make it a diverse university.
Again, I think I think diversity to me is a level of openness, and I think that we're a very open campus to a lot of different cultures. And for me, I run into people of all walks of life. I'm an engineering student, and we have lots of foreign students of all sorts of different cultures and customs. And, it's great getting to be involved with that. So I'd say I'm happy with that.
Very satisfying. I think that we're on the right track, that we open up the doors, that we allow anybody from anywhere to come on in. Is it as diverse as I'd like to see it? No, it can be more diverse, but it can always be more diverse. So it's one of those goals that you continuously strive for. But I see that the diversity that we have, the people that I've talked to and become friends with, from China, from India, from this state in Oregon, we all share some kind of uniqueness that, is very interesting. And so Portland State has done an excellent job in recruiting and gathering people from all over the world to come here to this one school so that all of us can see the importance of it and what we can learn from it.
As far as integration goes, I think the one thing that really, I went to one once, and I can't remember exactly what it was called, but it was like a multicultural night or something. I can't remember what it was called, but it was a big event, and they had a whole bunch of different groups of foreign students. And I think that's a good way to get those groups of students who are tend to click together a pod to come to one place where other people who are interested in that culture or whatever can all talk and kind of branch out and make some friends. I think that I've kind of felt this from a couple of the different groups that I've talked with, is that there's this feeling that I'm moving to America, or I'm studying in America, and nobody really cares about where I'm from, so I'm just going to try to blend in. And I've kind of felt that from a couple different groups, especially, not so much the European groups, but the Asian groups and some of the students from Africa. There's this feeling of, well, I'll just kind of hide where I'm from. And a lot of people are interested in that.
Well, I think Portland State is really willing. They want to hire faculty of color, they want to hire staff of color, but again, with always being underrepresented in higher education as a student as well as faculty and staff. If they're not getting people who are qualified to hold those positions, it's very hard for them to supply that for students, because students really need that. They need faculty and staff of color to be able to relate and have a mirror presented to them.
I would urge the university to fully acknowledge the fact that there's a lot more work to be done, that the university is not as diverse as the expectation is, and that there's a lot of the support system that's not in place that would create a more diverse, welcoming university.